A senior casino host who worked on the Strip for 12 years told me something off the record that the major hotel companies would never say publicly. Quote, "We don't want most tourists anymore. The middle class family booking a 3 night stay, that customer is now considered a liability." I didn't believe it at first. It sounded too cynical, too deliberately cruel to be true. But after 3 months analyzing earnings calls, combing through internal strategy documents, and talking to current and former employees who agreed to speak only under anonymity, I can now prove this isn't just one disgruntled person's opinion. This is the deliberate business model reshaping Las Vegas. Since 2019, the average daily room rate on the Strip has increased 58%, while total visitor volume has intentionally decreased by 7%. They're not trying to bring more people to Vegas. They're trying to bring fewer people who spend exponentially more. And if you've been to Vegas recently and felt like something has fundamentally changed, like the city doesn't want you there anymore unless you're wealthy, you're not imagining it. The evidence is overwhelming. But to understand why this is happening and why it should concern anyone planning a Vegas trip or anyone who cares about what Las Vegas represents in American culture, you need to see the full picture of what I uncovered. Part one, the public story versus reality. Let's start with what they tell you. Turn on your TV, scroll through social media, look at any Vegas marketing campaign. What happens here stays here. Welcome to fabulous Las Vegas. The messaging is consistent. Vegas is for everyone. It's the great American playground, the place where a middle-class family can have the vacation of a lifetime. The casino CEOs give interviews talking about democratizing luxury, about creating world-class entertainment that's accessible. But then you actually try to go there, and immediately you start noticing things that don't add up. Resort fees. You search for a room, you see $150 a night. Then at checkout, there's a mandatory resort fee of $45 to $50 per night. Not optional, mandatory, for amenities you may never use. This fee didn't exist 20 years ago. It was invented, quietly added, then aggressively expanded. Parking. If you drove to Vegas before 2016, you parked for free at every major Strip casino. Free parking was fundamental to the Vegas experience, but in 2016, MGM started charging $18 to $30 per day. Within 2 years, everyone followed. The Vegas buffet was iconic. $15 to $25, feed your family, feel like you got a deal. But look around now. Bellagio closed theirs. Mirage closed theirs. MGM Grand shut it down. What replaced them? Steakhouses where dinner for two easily hits $300 before drinks. The cheap options are being systematically eliminated. I started reading through tourist testimonials on Reddit and TripAdvisor. The pattern is unmistakable. I don't recognize this place anymore. A week in Vegas now costs what a European vacation cost in 2015. We saved for 2 years for this trip and still felt like we couldn't afford it to do anything. And here's the thing. If you feel like Vegas has become unaffordable, you're not imagining it. And it's not just inflation. Part two, following the money. To understand what's really going on, you have to follow the money. Before 2008, Vegas operated on volume. Pack the hotels, fill every room, get as many people as possible onto the casino floor. The profit came from gambling revenue, and gambling revenue came from bodies and seats. But something changed after 2020. The pandemic gave casino corporations cover to completely reimagine their business model. And what they discovered was revolutionary for them, devastating for regular tourists. They could make more money from fewer people. According to MGM Resorts financial filings, their revenue per available room increased from approximately $130 in 2019 to over $210 in 2024. That's a 62% increase. But occupancy didn't increase proportionally. They're filling fewer rooms, but charging dramatically more per room. Gaming revenue as a percentage of total revenue has dropped from around 60% to 35 to 40%. They're not casino companies anymore. They're hospitality and entertainment companies that happen to have casinos. I went through earnings calls from the last 2 years. Every single major operator uses the same language when talking to investors. They talk about targeting high worth customers. They discuss yield management and customer segmentation. And there's one phrase that appears over and over: premium experience for premium guests. In MGM's Q2 2024 earnings call, CEO Bill Hornbuckle told investors, and I'm paraphrasing closely here, that the company is laser focused on premium customers and premium experiences. He talked about moving away from discount driven visitation toward higher quality, higher spending guests. Here's the revelation that made everything click for me: 10,000 tourists spending $500 each generates $5 million in revenue. But 2,000 tourists spending $3,000 each generates $6 million with 80% fewer people to service, to feed, to clean up after. Fewer guests means lower operational costs, fewer dealers needed, fewer housekeepers, less wear and tear on the property. They discovered that exclusivity is more profitable than accessibility. Part 3: the internal strategy. What they're really doing. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. What I'm about to explain is based on conversations with current and former employees, internal training materials that were shared with me, and strategic documents that were never meant for public consumption. This is the part they really don't want you to know. The major casino operators have implemented what insiders call the velvet rope model. It's a 3-tier customer classification system that determines everything about your Vegas experience. Tier 1, the whales. VIP high rollers who gamble 50,000, 100,000, even millions per trip. Dedicated casino hosts, everything comped, private entrances. They're 2 to 3% of total visitors, but generate roughly 40% of revenue. Tier 2, the premium tourist. This is the target customer, people spending $2,000 to $5,000 per trip. They book suites, eat at nice restaurants, go to clubs, see shows, get spa treatments. They're 15 to 20% of visitors and generate about 45% of revenue. This is the sweet spot. This is who they want. Tier 3, the value customer. Budget-conscious families, people who book standard rooms on discount websites, eat cheap, barely gamble. These guests represent 75 to 80% of visitors, but generate only about 15% of revenue. From a pure business standpoint, these customers are a net negative. And here's the strategy that multiple sources confirmed to me. They are deliberately making the Tier 3 experience so uncomfortable, so expensive, so unpleasant that these customers either spend more to become Tier 2 customers or they stop coming to Vegas entirely. This is not accidental. This is engineered. Resort fees and parking fees are not primarily about generating revenue. They're about annoyance pricing. They're designed to frustrate budget-conscious customers. When you're planning a Vegas trip and you see that hidden $50 resort fee and $30 parking fee per day, that's an extra $240 for a 3-night stay. For someone on a tight budget, that might be enough to say, maybe we'll go somewhere else. One former casino host told me, and this is a direct quote, "We were told explicitly in training that our job wasn't to accommodate every guest. It was to make high-value guests feel special and everyone else feel like they should spend more or leave." She said this wasn't subtext. This was stated openly in internal training sessions. The casino floor layout is psychological warfare. Low minimum blackjack tables are deliberately hidden in back corners or eliminated entirely. The prominent floor space is all $50 and $100 minimums. The message is clear. If you're not spending big, you don't belong here. Dynamic pricing algorithms punish flexible travelers. If you're searching for the cheapest weekend, the system flags you as a value customer and either raises prices or limits availability. And here's the evidence that this is coordinated across the industry. Every major operator adopted resort fees within a 2-year window. All major operators adopted parking fees within 18 months of each other. The wave of buffet closures happened industry-wide between 2020 and 2023. This level of synchronized strategy change doesn't happen by coincidence. What we're seeing is collusion by observation. They're all reading from the same playbook because they all figured out the same thing. Fewer, richer customers equals higher profits. Part four, the human cost. There's a human cost to all of this that doesn't show up in earnings reports. Between 2020 and 2023, tens of thousands of Las Vegas hospitality workers were laid off. COVID was the excuse, but many of those positions never came back. Even as revenue hit record highs, staffing levels remained suppressed. Automated check-in kiosks replacing front desk workers, housekeeping cutbacks, daily room cleaning eliminated. The staff that remained spread thinner than ever. I read through hundreds of Glassdoor reviews from employees at major strip properties. Increased workload, stagnant wages, intense pressure to upsell guests at every interaction. One worker wrote, "I used to love helping guests have a great time. Now I'm just a salesperson, and if I don't hit my numbers, I get written up." Now let's talk about the tourists. In 2015, a family of four could do a Vegas trip for maybe $1,200 to $1,500 for 3 nights. Now run the same trip in 2025. That room is now $200 per night with resort fees. Add parking. No buffet anymore, so meals cost double. The show is $300 to $400 for the family. You're at over $2,000 before you've even gambled. That's a 35 to 40% increase for the exact same trip. One longtime visitor wrote, "My husband and I have been coming to Vegas every year for our anniversary for 23 years. We're both teachers. We can't afford it anymore. Last year, we spent $3,000 for 4 days, and we didn't even do anything extravagant. We felt like the city was punishing us for not being wealthy." Vegas was built on a promise. Anyone can come here and have the time of their life. A truck driver and a CEO could sit at the same blackjack table. That's dying. Vegas is becoming a gated community, economically, if not physically. Part five, the cover up. So, if all of this is true, why isn't this mainstream news? The Las Vegas tourism industry is a massive advertiser. Local media depends on casino ad revenue. Travel publications depend on relationships with Vegas PR departments. When earnings reports come out showing record revenue, the story is framed as success, not as extraction. Every casino worker signs an NDA. The sources who spoke to me did so anonymously because they're terrified of retaliation. One former executive told me, "There's a culture of fear. If you criticize the company, you're blackballed from the industry. And here's why customers don't push back. Vacations are infrequent. Most people go to Vegas once every few years. You don't notice the pattern. And once you've booked, once you're there, you're trapped by sunk costs. There's also an embarrassment factor. People don't want to admit they can't afford Vegas anymore." Part six, what happens next? So where does this go? Average daily rates have been increasing 8 to 12% per year. If that continues, we're looking at an average room rate of $400 to $500 per night by 2027 or 28. At that price point, Vegas becomes accessible only to the genuinely wealthy. Here's the irreversible threshold. Once mid-tier properties are repositioned as luxury properties, there's no going back. Once the buffets are replaced with $50 million steakhouse buildouts, you can't just bring back the buffet. Once you've trained your customer base that Vegas is expensive and exclusive, the brand perception change is permanent, and the competition is intensifying. Regional casinos are everywhere now. Online gambling is expanding. Other destinations are attracting the same demographic Vegas wants. If Vegas becomes too expensive, people will just go somewhere else. Here's the scenario that worries insiders. What happens if there's a recession, when high rollers stop traveling? These properties have eliminated the budget options that could serve as a fallback. They've bet everything on high-end demand continuing indefinitely. If that demand softens, they can't pivot. One source told me, "I give it 3 more years before we see the first major strip property close permanently because it can't fill rooms at the rates it needs to survive." The Vegas of 2030 could be half the size it is now, twice as expensive, and exclusively for wealthy people. That's not speculation. That's the current trajectory. So here's what we've exposed: Las Vegas isn't becoming more expensive by accident or inflation. The major casino corporations have made a calculated decision to transform Vegas from a mass market destination into a luxury exclusive playground. They are deliberately pricing out middle class tourists through hidden fees, eliminating budget options, and training staff to prioritize big spenders while making everyone else feel unwelcome. This isn't hospitality, this is economic exclusion. So, MGM Caesars win. We're asking publicly, is this the future you want for Las Vegas, a city that only the top 10% can afford? And when the economy turns and those high rollers stop coming, who exactly do you think will bail you out? If you've been to Vegas in the last few years and felt this shift, if you've experienced the hidden fees, the aggressive upselling, the sense that you're not the customer they want anymore, drop your story in the comments. I'm reading every single one because this investigation isn't over. This is part one. Next week, we're going deeper into the one company that's taking this strategy to the extreme, and I've obtained internal documents that prove they're willing to let properties decay rather than lower prices. You won't want to miss it.